Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 Quick Match gameplay. This time around we are on Toothgrass Hill playing as the Wood Elves against the force of the Skaven. And this is a matchup that in my opinion has definitely gotten a lot tougher for the Wood Elves in this past patch. A lot of the edge Wood Elves had before was the fact that they could outrange Skaven in literally every way. Deepwood Scouts outranged, even with Swift Shiver Shards, could basically match the range of the best Skaven slingers. Artillery just wasn't that effective against the loose formation archers, and so despite having a lot of chaff and potentially being able to out attrition the Wood Elves just by throwing crap at them and bleeding them dry, Skaven and obviously Stormhammer being very efficient against the vast majority of Wood Elf infantry and whatnot, I think it was a matchup that definitely Wood Elves could make life miserable for Skaven. It was definitely a very, I'd say, balanced, maybe even a little Wood Elf skewed matchup. I know some have argued otherwise, but I think at very least it was a well-rounded matchup. And now Skaven can match you for range. They can bring Natty Boo with sharpshooters. They've got Ikit Claw, who's a much more survivable and tankier lord, which is definitely a problem for the Wood Elves to deal with. And they've got a whole bunch of new regiments for Renown. So regardless, I figured, you know what would probably be the best way to crack it? A mass rush. This was already displayed in the Ever-Chosen tournament. I forget which game it was, but it was Wood Elves against Skaven, and just a mass rush was used. And this is actually kind of what we're doing here. For my lord, I'm rolling with Orion. Now, Orion is not bringing his horn. I'm personally not a huge fan of the Horn of the Wild Hunt. I know it's a big boost, but when I'm scrounging for points, it's going to be with the first thing that gets cut. We also did bring Hawk's Talon as well as Hounds of Orion just to disrupt, mess up enemy formations, disrupt blobs, that sort of thing. And then we do have two heroes. I've got a Branch Wraith to give us some magic in this clump of infantry because I was worried about Giselle's trying to snipe him out immediately. And so I figured, you know what, keep him clumped up. That's probably his best hope for survival. He's got Call of the Woods to buff up melee attack. He's got Earthblood, Melkos Miasma, as well as Penumbral Pendulum, which can be pretty potent against Skaven if they blob up on you or anything of that sort. Besides that, we've got a Wavestalker who's all the way out here on the flank. He does have his Arrow of Kurnus, so he's going to be able to do hopefully some damage to, say, artillery. And otherwise, he does have Snipe, which is really nice. And if you get a squishy enemy hero, or Lord, like a Plague Priest or a or Skrulk or something, he's incredibly good at taking them down and is just such a, honestly, stupidly potent character for that. Now, for our front line here, we do have simply a bunch of Dryads. And then, well, Wild Riders. So that's basically it. That's our rush. It's 5 units of Dryads, 3 Wild Riders with shields, because obviously you want the shields. Even with the debuff coming in from Warplock Giselles, you're still going to have over 30 shield block chance, so that's pretty good. And then 2 Way Watchers. The Way Watchers are here for kind of a dual purpose. Well, partially to deal with Doom Wheels, big single constructs like the Plague Priest, or constructs, I guess, like a Plague Furnace, but also to overwhelm. I figured that if I can plow into my opponent's line, start buckling it immediately, I'm going to be able to shoot down things like Natty Boo with sharpshooters and Warplock Giselles just by overwhelming them. It might seem a little silly, but the fact of the matter is these guys do have armor and silver shields, but they only have 3,000 HP, so that's definitely pretty easy to buckle. Now, as you can see here, we're immediately charging and getting plastered. These Drides are basically goners. My opponent here decided to go with a super wide build. He outnumbers me like 3 to 1 almost. It's basically 3 to 1 now that he's killing a unit. For his front line, it's mostly Skaven slaves who are kind of scattered all over the place. Skaven slave spears, looking to zone me out, backed by a whole bunch of plague monks to dispatch my main infantry corps. He also does have Ikit Claw over here, who's got a decent lineup of abilities. He's got Howling Warp Gale, he's got Warp Lightning, he also has the Musk of Fear, as well as Brass Orb, so a nice selection of cheap, spammable spells. He's also mounted on a Doom Flare rather than a Doom Wheel, which is going to make him a very tough target to hit, because Doom Wheels have Doom Flares have very small hitboxes. So my Way Watchers that I was hoping would snipe out units like this will have issues. Besides that, there are some Rat Ogres hidden in the trees looking to ambush me if I plow through this front line, which is only held by a single unit of Plague Monks. So that is definitely where I'm immediately piling in. I figured, you know what, screw it. If my opponent pincers me, too bad. We're going to get in here. We're going to shut down the shooting immediately. And it's actually pretty difficult to spot these Natty Boobos sharpshooters. Like, I knew they were there because I could see the stupid purple contrails, but now you can see it's only now that we spotted them. And you can see that Arrow of Kurnus, I was trying to pick off a Blade Claw Catapult, figuring let's whittle it down, and go figure it didn't work. Arrow of Kurnus just kind of wonky and whiffed. It happens sometimes, but Arrow of Kurnus, it's a good spell, but it's definitely, sometimes you just get unlucky and kind of get shafted. Now, the Warplock Giselles here getting counter-sniped by those Wood Elf Way Watchers, and in hindsight, one of the things I perhaps should have done is split my Way Watchers more, gotten like a Way Watcher here and a Way Watcher here, because then I would have been able to get past these guys' shields probably. But regardless, they're getting overwhelmed. You can see the Waywatcher fire just buckling them. They try to counter fire a little bit here. The Waywatchers, you can see taking some artillery fire. But by now, we are in the cookie jar. You can see our Wild Riders just piling through. These Wild Riders over here getting trapped in melee. I actually ordered them to charge the Rat Ogres when I saw the Rat Ogres coming out of the woodwork. And so they got some good damage. They're getting bogged down, but Skaven Slave's not very good, and they're going to be blocking the Plague Monks from helping too much. So that's going to be beneficial. In the meantime, these Wild Riders overwhelming the Plague Claw. The Jezzails are basically gone, sniped to death, and shattered. And on this flank, well, things are holding relatively steady. The Dryads definitely slugging out. They're a very good unit against Plague Monks and Skaven Slaves and that sort of shit. And those units are basically gone over here. My opponent does try to cast a Plague, which I forgot to mention. He had a Plague Furnace. And I guess he brought some spells on that as well. He didn't bring Vermintide, which I think he should have. He tried to use Plague there. It whiffed. And now you can see the Waywatchers are coming back with a vengeance. Now, unfortunately, those spazzy animations on the Plague Furnace mean that the Waywatchers are going to whiff a lot more than I'd like. But, you know what? I'll take what I can get. In the meantime, over here, we are going to be casting a very awkward Penumbral Pendulum, sweeping through this blind. But look at how much damage it does to these Plague Monks. When they're clumped like this, they're losing, like, 3,000. That was keep in mind that was a normal cast of Penumbral Pendulum. That was not an upgraded cast, and it wiped like almost half the unit, or it took half the unit's HP, which is pretty nuts. Now we did rout our own Wild Riders, but they were already pretty gone, so that's oh well, that's whatever. And in the meantime, these Wild Riders are going to run amok over there. Over here, the Dryads beating down the Rat Ogres. Their immunity psychology really coming into play here, keeping them in the fight much longer than my opponent would probably like. The Waywatchers being disrupted by Brass Orb, but doing some work against this Plague Priest as the Wild Riders come piling through, looking to do even more damage. Over here in the meantime, Orion actually terror routed this whole blob. Despite the fact that it was going terribly and it was only like one unit of Dryads, this small unit here that was holding it up, Orion came in, dropped his spells, nuked them, and fear routed them. And now we are going to be trying to get in on Naked Claw. But you can see Orion kind of standing here, looking pretty. And I don't know why he was kind of bugging out. It's like he stopped to shoot. I ordered him to go into melee, but he kept stopping to reconsider. Not entirely sure why that was. The Waywatcher fire here, you can see that issue with Ikit's tiny hitbox. And he just like revs up there. And we're just whiffing so many shots there. But now that I've pulled away these Waywatchers, we're not doing as much friendly fire. And Ikit is definitely taking a pounding, especially at this range. You just can't afford to take that much damage. And the Waystalker is now chipping away as well. The Waystalker, of course, does have homing shots. Now, sure, Ikit has 110 armor, which is actually more than on a Doomwheel. Didn't realize that. But on the Doomflare, he's got 110 armor. But he's definitely getting whittled down here pretty heavily. The Plague Furnace has been holding up pretty well. And I realized at this point, I'm no longer under pressure. So before I felt really pressured to protect my Waywatchers, keep them firing, and I couldn't afford to let him sort of have to run. So I kind of threw the Wild Riders in there to tie my opponent down. But now realizing my opponent's basically lost a kid, he's basically off the field, I decided, you know what, these Wild Riders can get out of there. They don't need to hold anymore. Now my Waywatchers can just pound this Plague Priest into dust. We've got our Waystalker in there. We've got Ryan. And at this point, my opponent's army is actually going to rout. You can see over here the Branch Wraith did get routed. He was in a brave fight against those Plague Monks. We actually saved him there with the Wild Riders. And that was a game. So, obviously, the kill counts is something I would say is heavily misleading. I wouldn't take it for much. There's a lot of Skaven Slaves that died here. Almost all the kills on the Wild Riders were Skaven Slaves. Same with most of the kills on Ryan. Probably the Branch Wraith as well. Even the Dryads. But if you're looking to deal with Skaven as Wood Elves, this would be my recommended approach at this moment. Maybe not exactly this build. You can try and mess around with different builds for sure. But you definitely need to get in there. You need to start just overrun them with numbers, or breach the front line, get on that shooting, and shut it down. Now in the long run, if they bring out some Stormvermin, that might make life a little more miserable. But you can whittle down Stormvermin with other stuff. Like Orion can basically beat the snot out of Stormvermin. Waywatchers can definitely shoot him down. And if it's like Stormvermin with Halberds, their stats are pretty miserable, so even Dryads will do some good work there. You're just going to have to play around that, essentially. But the most important thing is to be able to counter these sorts of shooting builds, in my opinion. And I think this sort of Vanguard shenanigan is worth it. Now, obviously, if you dump the Waywatchers, you can get more tools to rush with. But I think the Waywatchers are a very valuable tool here. They basically, had my opponent deployed a bit more dedicated. So my opponent, the way he deployed, he only had one unit of Plague Monks in the center. And I think that kind of screwed him there. Had he had more units of Plague Monks in the center, he would have been able to, or had he, not even necessarily Plague Monks, just Skaven Slaves in the center, to clog up the charge, my Wild Riders wouldn't have been able to get into combat. They wouldn't have been able to immediately shut down that Plague Claw and Natty Buboes. You can see these guys, even in that little smidgen of time, they did stupid amounts of damage. 39 kills between these units, and they went down in like the first, I don't know, minute of the game. So for that, I think the Weight Watchers are just so useful. If you can just pressure your opponent's line back, give your Weight Watchers a little bit of space to fire, they can take down those units like Natty Buboes. They can just overwhelm them with fire. It might actually even be worth it to bring the Regiment of Renown Weight Watchers for that, because you get that leadership debuff. And one of the things Jezzails do not have going for them is leadership. Their leadership is pretty bad. It's still Skaven tier. If we look into customs real quick, I don't remember their. I think they have 60 or 55 leadership when they're on the Regiment of Renown. Oh yeah, it's 60. You can see. So not terrible leadership. It's like state troop leadership, but you can definitely break that because they don't have much HP. So you get them damaged a whole bunch really quickly, and then you get your Regiment of Renown to pound them into dust, and they rout. So I think that might be a good way. Keep in mind, they're fairly expensive units, so while they did get 20 kills against like Dryads, they probably didn't pay for themselves, which is very important. Just denying them that opportunity to get much damage in. But yeah, that's just my 2 cents. I think that's the way to approach this matchup. If you guys have other strats that you like to use and you think are viable or competitive, be sure to let me know. Be sure to post that down below. I'd love to hear what you guys have found out. But yeah, I think the Elf Rush is a good way to counter Skaven. As usual, guys, if you have any comments, any criticism, any questions, do not hesitate to post them down below, and I will do my very best to respond as soon as I can. I do thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.